So, the unstoppable juggernaut versus the immovable blob. Who wins? First answer, the most comic accurate answer, is the blob probably moves. In fact, both the juggernaut has been stopped and the blob has been moved in the comics, so the juggernaut isn't really unstoppable, nor is the blob really immovable. They're just hard to stop and hard to move. But that doesn't sound as catchy. Number two, let's look at a physical explanation. First of all, you have to realize that their powers are equivalent. Relativity says that every inertial reference frame is essentially equivalent. So the juggernaut moving at the blob at an enormous speed is the exact same as the blob moving at the juggernaut at the exact same speed. Which means their powers would be essentially equivalent. The vector of their momentum cannot be changed. At which point, if the juggernaut and the blob's powers worked the way I thought in my previous video, which is to say they always have a momentum that counteracts whatever incoming momentum comes their way, then the juggernaut's momentum would overcome the blob's momentum, which would overcome the juggernaut's momentum, and so on and so on and so forth, into infinity. Meaning you just generated infinite energy from the two of them touching, which is basically an end-of-universe scenario, so that's not great, and is not particularly satisfying. So here is my third interpretation, my favorite interpretation. In both of the first two interpretations, neither of the powers work as intended. In the first, the juggernaut stops and the blob moves. In the second, the universe ends and we really don't get to see the interaction at all. But if the juggernaut and the blob were both made out of some sort of matter that could not have their vector of momentum changed, then when the juggernaut attempts to run into the blob, they phase through each other. The only way for these two sets of matter to completely conserve their momentum is to never have to interact with each other. Essentially, the juggernaut cannot feel any counteracting momentum caused by the blob and vice versa. That is the only way to satisfy their power set. So, my favorite interpretation is that if the juggernaut runs headfirst at the blob, they phase right through each other, and the juggernaut keeps on going, and the blob keeps on standing there. Unstoppable force meets immovable object, and both are satisfied.